is a listing that shows up on Craigslist in almost every American city, usually with 3 blurry photos and a price that stops your scrolling. A camper, sometimes 30 years old, sitting in somebody's gravel driveway with weeds growing around the tires. For $1,000. Sometimes less. For a growing number of Americans, that listing is the last door between them and sleeping outside. But the listing is only the beginning. Because the moment you climb inside and shut that thin aluminum door behind you, a completely different life begins. Start with the purchase itself, because it never looks like the photos. You drive out to a house at the edge of town, and there it sits, a 1993 Coachman or an old Fleetwood Jamboree, faded stripes down the side, one taillight held on with duct tape. The seller is usually an older man who inherited it from his father or gave up on fixing it. He'll tell you the engine runs, and he might even be telling the truth. What he won't mention is the water stains spreading across the ceiling above the bed, or the way the floor near the bathroom gives slightly under your foot, like walking on wet cardboard. That soft floor matters more than almost anything else. In the world of cheap campers, water is the killer. Rain finds its way through cracked roof seals year after year, soaking into the wooden frame until the walls are more sponge than structure. A camper with a solid roof and a rotten engine can still be a home. A camper rotting from the inside is a slow-motion collapse you happen to be sleeping in. But when you have $1,200 to your name and the eviction notice is already taped to your apartment door, you don't get to be picky. You check that the engine turns over, you check that the door locks, and you count out the bills on the tailgate of the seller's pickup truck. He signs over the title on the hood, wishes you luck, and just like that, you own a home. 22 feet of it, with 200,000 miles on the odometer. The drive away from that gravel driveway is a strange feeling people in this situation describe again and again. Relief and terror in the same breath. You have a roof now. You also have no idea what you're doing. Moving in takes about 1 afternoon because everything you own fits in a few garbage bags and a couple of plastic totes from the storage unit you can no longer afford. The first job is cleaning out the life of whoever came before you. Old campers come with ghosts. Yellowed curtains from 1994. A drawer full of rusted fishing lures. Somebody's reading glasses wedged behind the fold-out couch. A church bulletin from a town 400 miles away. Then there's the smell. Every old camper has it. A mix of mildew, propane, old carpet, and 3 decades of trapped summers. You scrub the counters with bleach, you rip out the worst of the carpet, you leave the windows open for 2 days, and the smell fades to something you eventually stop noticing. People who live this way say that's the first real milestone. The day the camper stops smelling like someone else's past and starts smelling like your coffee. Inside, the layout is the same in almost all of them. A bed over the cab, a dinette table that folds into a second bed, a 2-burner propane stove, a fridge that may or may not work, and a bathroom the size of a phone booth with a toilet you're afraid to ask about. On paper, it's everything a house has. In reality, half of it is dead. The rooftop air conditioner hasn't blown cold air since the 90s. The water heater is a rusted question mark. The generator, if there is one, is seized solid. So you learn the first rule of $1,000 camper life. You don't live in a working RV. You live in a metal tent with a bed and a locking door, and you slowly, piece by piece, bring parts of it back to life. Then comes the first night, and the first night is where the fantasy ends. Because here is the problem no one thinks about until they're living it. You own a home now, but you don't own anywhere to put it. Every square foot of ground in America belongs to someone, and almost none of them want an old camper parked on it overnight. So you do what thousands of people do every single night in this country. You drive to the edge of a Walmart parking lot at 10 at night, far from the entrance, Near the semi-trucks idling in the dark, you turn off your engine, you pull the curtains closed, and you sit there in the dark, listening. Every set of headlights that sweeps across your ceiling makes your chest tighten. Every car door that slams in the distance could be security. You lie in that bed over the cab, fully dressed, keys within reach, and you learn a new kind of sleep. Shallow and alert, one ear always open. And at some point, in the first week or the first month, it happens. The knock. 3 hard raps on the aluminum door at 2 in the morning. A flashlight beam cutting through the gap in the curtains. Sometimes it's a security guard telling you the lot doesn't allow overnight parking anymore. Sometimes it's a police officer running your plates while you stand in the cold in your socks. Usually they're not cruel. Usually they just say the words every camper dweller comes to know by heart. You can't stay here. You have to move along. So at 2 in the morning, you climb into the driver's seat of your home and you drive to another lot. A quiet industrial street. A 24-hour gym parking lot. A church that hasn't noticed you yet. Veterans of this life keep a mental map of 8 or 10 spots and rotate through them, never staying anywhere more than a night or two, because the surest way to lose a spot forever is to get comfortable in it. That's the hidden exhaustion of this life, not the small bed or the cold mornings. The constant, low-grade math of where tonight is going to be. Once you survive the parking problem, daily life settles into systems, and the systems are where old campers become genuinely fascinating. Take water. Your tank might hold 30 gallons, but the pump is dead and the lines haven't been trusted since the Clinton administration. So instead, you live off refilled gallon jugs lined up by the sink. You learn to wash dishes in 2 inches of water. You learn that a full body wash takes less than 1 gallon, heated on the propane stove, with a washcloth, standing on a towel on the floor. Real showers come from other places. A Planet Fitness membership for $10 a month becomes the single best purchase in this entire life because it buys unlimited hot showers in every city with a location. Truck stops sell showers too. Spotless private bathrooms with endless hot water, and people describe their first truck stop shower after a hard week the way other people describe a resort vacation. The toilet in your camper probably doesn't work, and honestly, you don't want it to, because emptying a black tank without a proper hookup is its own nightmare. So you use a 5-gallon bucket lined with a trash bag and a scoop of kitty litter. And you use the bathrooms at libraries, gas stations, and McDonald's like everyone else out here does. Electricity is its own quiet puzzle. The camper's house batteries died sometime in the last decade, so power comes from a used deep cycle marine battery bought for $40, charged off the engine while you drive, or from a single solar panel screwed flat to the roof. It runs the essentials. A strip of LED lights, a phone charger, a small fan. Everything else gets charged out in the world. The public library becomes your office, a wall outlet and free Wi-Fi and a warm chair for as long as you want it. And if you watch the tables there on any weekday morning, you'll start to recognize who else has figured that out. Cooking is the bright spot. That little 2-burner propane stove almost always still works. And a 20-pound propane tank costs about $20 and lasts weeks. Rice, beans, eggs, canned soup, coffee in a battered percolator. On a cold night, with the stove going and the curtains drawn, that tiny kitchen glows. And for a moment, the camper feels less like a last resort and more like a cabin. But the cold itself is the enemy. These campers have walls about an inch thick. On a January night, the inside temperature falls within a few degrees of the outside within hours. People survive winter with a small Mr. Buddy propane heater, a carbon monoxide detector screwed to the wall, sleeping bags rated for 0 degrees, and layers of blankets that make the bed look like a nest. And every cold morning brings condensation, Your own breath frozen on the inside of the single-pane windows, dripping down the walls, feeding the mold you're constantly fighting. Summer flips the problem. That metal box in a treeless parking lot in July becomes an oven, and with no working air conditioner, survival means window screens, small USB fans running off a battery pack, and parking on whichever side of the building throws afternoon shade. Now, before we get into the money side of this life, one thing worth pausing on. A lot of what actually keeps people safe out here can't be said out loud on this platform without putting the channel at risk. The specific overnight spots that still work. The exact words that turn a police knock into a warning instead of a tow. The winter checklist that keeps people alive in January. So it's all been put into a written guide instead, called the Veteran's Blueprint. It's the first link in the description below, whether you're close to the edge yourself, already out there, or trying to help someone who is. It goes far deeper than any video can, because the money side of this life is its own education. Start with the fact that owning a camper means the government still knows you exist. Registration on an old RV runs anywhere from $50 to a few $100s a year depending on the state, and basic insurance can be found for around $20 to $30 a month if you shop hard. People on the edge sometimes skip both, and it's a gamble with brutal odds because one traffic stop with expired plates can end with your entire home on the back of a tow truck. Out here, one lapsed registration can cost you everything you own. Then there's gas. A 30-year-old camper with a big V8 engine drinks fuel at 8 to 10 miles per gallon, which is why the smartest people in this life barely drive. They find a city, learn its rhythms, and move the camper only a few miles at a time between overnight spots. The camper isn't a road trip. It's a stationary home that happens to be able to flee. Income comes from wherever it can. Some people out here still work full-time, which surprises viewers every single time. Warehouse shifts, overnight stocking at grocery stores, security work, home health aides. They shower at the gym, dress in clean clothes kept in plastic totes, and their coworkers never know. Others patch it together with day labor outside Home Depot. Plasma donation twice a week for around $100. Food delivery apps run from the driver's seat of their own home. And a huge number of the people in these campers are living on a check. A Social Security payment of $1,500 or $1,800 a month, or a veteran's disability payment, arriving on the 3rd of every month like clockwork. Do the math on that check against a one-bedroom apartment that now costs $1,400 or more in much of the country, plus utilities, plus insurance, and the camper stops looking like a strange choice. In city after city, it's the only line item that makes the budget balance. There's also a problem most people never consider until it's theirs. That check needs somewhere to land, and the government wants an address, but a Walmart parking lot doesn't have one. So people improvise. Direct deposit into a bank account opened years ago. A grown daughter's address 2 states away. A private mailbox service for $15 a month that gives you a real street address instead of a P.O. box, which matters more than it sounds. Because a street address is what keeps your driver's license valid, and your driver's license is what keeps you legal, and being legal is what keeps your home off the back of a tow truck. Out here, a mailbox is infrastructure. Food banks fill the gaps. Church pantries on Tuesdays, community fridges, the food bank line that forms at 7 in the morning where, and this is the detail that stays with people, more and more of the cars waiting in line are campers exactly like yours, with curtains in the windows and bikes strapped to the back. That line is where you meet the others. And the others are not who the average person pictures. There's the 71-year-old widow in the Winnebago 2 spots down, who cleaned houses for 40 years and watched her rent climb past her entire Social Security check the year after her husband died. She keeps geraniums in a pot by her door and sweeps the asphalt in front of her steps every morning like it's a porch. There's the veteran in the Toyota camper with the American flag decal, 58 years old, who came home decades ago and never quite got his footing back, and who will fix anyone's engine in the lot for a hot meal and some conversation. There's the couple in their 60s who lost the house in a medical bankruptcy because his heart surgery cost more than they'd saved in 35 years of working, and who now hold hands walking laps around the parking lot at sunset like it's their neighborhood. Because it is. And there are the dogs. Walk through any of these lots and you'll see them in the windows. A gray-muzzled lab, a little terrier standing guard on a dashboard. For a lot of people out here, the dog is the reason they're in a camper at all, because almost no shelter takes pets, and they were never going to give up the one companion who stayed when everything else left. The dog gets fed first. Always. And on the hard nights, that warm weight against your leg is the difference between a bad night and an unbearable one. These lots develop something nobody expects, which is community. People watch each other's rigs. They share propane when someone runs out on a cold night. They bang on your door if a tow truck circles, and they pass along the knowledge that keeps everyone alive. Which lot changed its rules? Which church started letting people stay? Which officer will give you a warning and which one won't? Out here, information is currency, and generosity is the local economy. But it would be dishonest to end the story there, because this life also has teeth. The camper you bought for $1,000 is one breakdown away from being scrap metal. A failed transmission costs more than the whole vehicle is worth. So when the engine starts knocking, people just stop driving it entirely, and the moment a camper can't move, the clock starts. Parking complaints pile up. Orange stickers appear on the windshield. And then one morning, you come back from the food bank and there's an empty rectangle of oil-stained asphalt where your home used to be, and a towing company across town wants $400, you don't have to give it back. People lose everything they own this way, photographs, documents, medications, all of it, for the price of a parking violation. Sickness is the other shadow. There's no calling in sick when your body is the engine of your whole survival. And a bad flu in a freezing camper, alone, at 68 years old, is genuinely dangerous. The people who make it are the ones who let someone, anyone, know to check on them. And winter never negotiates. Every year in cold states, people are found in campers that ran out of propane on the wrong night. The ones who survive treat cold weather with the seriousness of a sailor treating the sea. So that's the honest picture. The fear, the knocks, the tow trucks, the cold. And yet, ask the people actually living inside these $1,000 campers, and a surprising number of them will tell you something that catches every interviewer off guard. They'll tell you the camper saved their life. Because compare it to the alternative. A tent under an overpass has no lock. A shelter bed, when you can even get one, means giving up your belongings, your pet, your privacy, and sleeping in a room full of strangers. The camper has a door that locks, a bed that's yours, a stove that makes coffee exactly the way you like it, a window with your own curtains. It is, in the most stripped-down sense of the word, a home. And for people who spent months in freefall, watching everything get taken away piece by piece, that locking door is the first thing in a long time that stays. Some people use it as a bridge. They stabilize, save the money they're not spending on rent, and 18 months later, they're back in an apartment, and they sell the camper for $1,000 to the next person standing where they once stood. Others look at the math, look at the freedom, and quietly decide they're never going back to rent at all. Either way, the next time you pass an old, faded camper parked at the dark edge of a grocery store lot, curtains drawn, you'll know what's actually happening inside. Someone is doing dishes in 2 inches of water. Someone is counting the days until the check arrives. Someone is holding on, with more skill and more grit than almost anyone gives them credit for. If this opened your eyes even a little, subscribe, because next we're going inside the $50 storage units people are secretly living in, and that story goes even deeper than this one.